This meeting is being recorded.
All right, welcome back. We're jumping into chapter 3 now. Uh, we're we're going to talk about the interdependence and gains from trade. Now, the past two chapters, we talked about the economy in kind of like a wide scale perspective. We mentioned that the study of macroeconomics, which is what this course is all about, we're looking at the economy from the perspective of the whole country. Okay. And in that perspective, we also understand that uh, our country imports a lot of goods and services from other countries. If you think about the clothes that you're wearing right now, where are those made? Okay. Oftentimes they're not made here in the United States, they're made somewhere else. And it's usually far, far away from here. If you think about your furniture, maybe the desk that you're sitting at right now, or the sofa in the living room that you might be sitting on, where's that made? It's probably not made in the U.S. There's a good chance it's not. What about that cell phone that you're using right now, or the computer screen that you're looking at right now? Where's it made? Probably not in the U.S. Why do I say this? Because it would be very expensive if it was made here. Why? Because in the United States, we pay a lot more in wages, we pay a lot more in rent, we pay a lot more in utilities, we pay a lot more in the cost of manufacturing. And that's the reason why a lot of your goods and services are not produced here in the United States. They're produced elsewhere. For example, my truck, which is a Toyota, it was made in Mexico. It wasn't made here in the United States. And it's a Toyota. It's a Japanese truck. So Japanese truck made in Mexico, I bought here in the United States. Yeah, we call it interdependence. We're interdependent, and it's a gain on trade. Now I'm going to explain all these things to you. If you think about the economy in a really basic sense, you can boil it down to something as simple as meat and potatoes. Okay. Uh, think about two different farms. All right, we got two different farms. We got a cattle ranch, and we got a potato farm. A lot of people like to consume these two things together, on the same plate. So how does it work? Well, there's what we call an interdependency between these two things because they're so highly correlated. They're related, right? So if one farmer only produces the cattle or raises cattle and the other produces potatoes, they both gain from trading with each other. You see? If they both produce both things, they gain from what we call a specialization. One farmer specializes in another item, you see. This is an expansion on what we learned earlier about the production possibilities frontier. When we talked about the production possibilities frontier in the last chapter, we looked at computers and cars being produced by the same company. And if you think about that production possibilities frontier, remember the trade-off. If I produce more computers, I'm producing less cars. If I'm producing more cars, I'm producing less computers. That's the trade-off. The same could be said with meat and potatoes, right? That same concept applies. So here we have the two farmers. One's a cattle rancher and the other one is a potato farmer. And we can see that based off of this information, this data that we're given here, how long or how much effort or materials goes into producing a unit of that product. Okay, so for example, to make 1 ounce of meat, it takes 60 minutes per ounce of potatoes and 20 minutes per ounce of meat. Okay, to produce 1 ounce of potatoes, it's 15 minutes per ounce of potatoes and 10 minutes per ounce of meat. Okay, but you can kind of get, just from that data, you can kind of gauge an understanding of what the trade-off is. For how much meat can produce in 8 hours, we do 8 ounces for potatoes and 24 ounces for the meat. So that's the specialization. But you see where we're going with this. If we look at this in a graphical sense, let's say both farmers are producing the same exact stuff, right? They're both producing meat or whatever, and potatoes. If they're both doing it, we can see that on the left side, so Farmer Frank here, Farmer Frank can produce the maximum possibilities frontier for Farmer Frank is could produce 4 ounces of meat and 16 ounces of potato. Why? Because Farmer Frank specializes in potatoes. So, and the opposite can be true for Ruby. But here we go with Ruby. They can produce 12 ounces of meat and 24 ounces of potatoes. So maybe it's a bigger farm. The point that I'm trying to make here is that in this type of situation, there's no trade-off. But if one is producing one product and the other is producing the other, then we can have trade between the two. So that's what comes down to specialization and trade. We know that one farmer can specialize in one crop over another. So if Frank specializes in potatoes, Ruby is a cattle rancher. Therefore, they specialize in those areas individually. And we can see that there will be trade based off of this graph here. So this kind of gives you an idea of how trade would impact the production possibilities frontier. That's what we're trying to get at. So you can see that when the two farmers trade with each other, the consumption or the production possibilities frontier shifts to the right, and there's a greater capacity, you see? So that's what that shows us. So if we change the factors up, here we have Frank producing meat and potatoes and Ruby's doing the same thing. We can see that with the levels of output, when we introduce trade, there's an increase in consumption. Now, when we have two companies, we'll say, engaging in trade, and they both specialize in something, it introduces this concept called an absolute advantage. One company has an advantage over the other based off of their specialty, right? They can produce more than the other can because of their ability to produce that particular product. So we know that Farmer Ruby can produce a lot more meat than Farmer Frank can, and Ruby can do it a lot faster than Frank can, right? Because that's the specialty. Ruby has an advantage over Frank in producing meat. And Frank has an advantage over Ruby in producing potatoes, you see? That's what the point I'm trying to get across here is. Now remember, just like we talked about in the production possibilities frontier, there's an opportunity cost here as well, especially when both producers are producing the same things. If they're going to produce more of one product over another, there's a trade-off. There's an opportunity cost. And the definition of an opportunity cost is the cost of whatever's given up. In the example we had from the last chapter, the opportunity cost is the cost of the computers I gave up to produce more cars, right? In this example, in this chapter, the opportunity cost would be the cost of per ounce of meat given up to produce more potatoes. You see? It's a trade-off between the two products. So here's that example of that opportunity cost. So if it takes Frank 60 minutes to produce 1 ounce of meat and 15 minutes to produce 1 ounce of potatoes, if Frank wants to produce more of the meat, the opportunity cost is going to be potatoes. You see what I'm saying? And the opposite is true for Ruby. So following that same example, if we look at the opportunity cost, we can see that the opportunity cost is what's given up to produce more of one product over another. The two companies in this example have what we call a comparative advantage. It's the ability to produce a good at a lower opportunity cost than another producer. Frank can produce way more potatoes than Ruby can because Frank specializes in producing potatoes. So because of that, the opportunity cost is probably going to be a little lower because can do it quicker, can do it easier. You see? And the opposite is also true for Ruby. It reflects the relative opportunity cost. The idea behind the comparative advantage is that each good should be produced by the individual that has a similar opportunity cost of producing that good. That's what we call specializing. When we have specialization, for example, Ruby producing meat as a cattle rancher and Frank producing potatoes as a potato farmer, that's where they specialize. So their opportunity costs are going to be less for producing those types of goods because they specialize in doing it. That's the point. One person can have an absolute advantage in both goods, and that's usually a result of having higher capacity and improved technology. But one person cannot have a comparative advantage in producing both goods. They can have an absolute advantage, but not a comparative advantage. They can have an absolute advantage, but not a comparative advantage for one person. And of course, the difference here is going to be the different opportunity costs. That's what makes it a comparative advantage. Frank has the ability to produce potatoes. He specializes in it, and therefore the cost of those potatoes are going to be less. Ruby has the ability to produce meat from the cattle, and therefore the opportunity cost for the meat is going to be less. You see, comparative advantage. For the opportunity cost of one good, it's an inverse relationship for the opportunity cost of another. It's the opposite. That's what I've been saying. It's just another fancy way of saying it. The gains from specialization and trade are based off of this comparative advantage that we're talking about. So if Frank can't produce the meat, then Frank will buy it from Ruby. See, in a trade. So when we have this trade, it increases total production. It increases the size of the economic pie. And the idea here is that everyone is better off from trade. Everyone is better off from trade. We learned about that in chapter 1. Trade can benefit everyone. Why? Because everyone has access to these goods and services. And because everyone has access, the price comes down and it gives a comparative advantage. The price of trading something is the price between the two opportunity costs. So in other words, if Frank purchases from Ruby, the opportunity cost is the cost of that meat. Len, I see your hand. Please, Len.
Is this also dealing with scarcity?
It is, yeah.
Principles of scarcity is a big part of the supply and demand ratio equation that you're putting forward here.
Yeah, it sure is. And Len, as you think about scarcity, the idea here is that the scarcity are things like the labor going into it, the amount of natural resources going into it, and we know that scarcity is the limitation of those things. And the limitation of those things oftentimes influences the cost of those things. And the more scarce a resource is, of course, the higher the cost is going to be, because there's just not enough going into producing that good and service. So yeah, it's certainly a part of it. Is it all of it? No, but it is a part of it. Yeah, great question. So yeah, we look at the interdependence and the gains from trade in this relationship. So the gains from trade, of course, is going to be the lower cost. That's a gain, and the interdependence is the relationship between the two products. Like this one, LeBron. Okay, should LeBron mow his own lawn? Obviously, he's not going to. But if he did, how much could he save? That's the opportunity cost, right? That's the opportunity cost. So either mows his own lawn or he does a TV commercial and earns 30,000. I think he's going to go for the TV commercial. Just an idea. His neighbor can mow the lawn in 4 hours, or work at McDonald's and earn 50. Okay, so I would suspect that that either individual, LeBron or his neighbor, would go for the higher earning of the two options, right? That's the trade-off. That's comparative advantage. Why does the U.S. trade with other countries? The idea here is that we're trying to lower the production cost of our goods and services. So if something is too expensive to produce here at home, we'll have it produced somewhere else and import it. Okay. Here's a great example. I love this example. I'm going to give you a real life example. Okay. I want you to think about the cost of things. Think about the cost of things. Here's one of my favorite examples. I use this example in both accounting and in economics. Think about the cost of furniture. Okay, think about the last time you bought a piece of furniture and how expensive it was. Okay, here, let's just use an example. Just an example, hypothetical, okay? The cost of, we'll say, an office desk, all right? Let's say we went to Bob's Discount Furniture and we saw this great desk, awesome desk, huge desk, love the desk, $1,000, okay, at Bob's. Not bad, not great, but not bad price, middle of the road, but nice desk. $1,000 is the sale price. Okay, you're thinking to yourself, well, Dr. B, that's a lot of money. It is a lot of money. It used to be a lot less, but inflation. Anyway, think about the cost of making that desk. Let's say the desk was made in the United States. That desk probably would have cost Bob about $900 to have it made in the United States. Bob sold it for $1,000. Bob ain't making a whole lot of profit here, about $100. But that's not reality. The best furniture manufacturer on the planet is going to be Vietnam. Vietnam makes the best furniture. Just hands down. Out of anywhere on the planet, Vietnam makes the best furniture. Why? Because they have a lot of scarce resources available to them. They got the wood, great amount of wood, good quality wood. They got inexpensive labor. They got, a lot of scarce resources available to Vietnam. And so to produce that same desk, to make that same desk in Vietnam, maybe $100 at best. That's really pushing it. Okay? I mean, that's probably like $20 to be real. So it costs $20 to make the desk. The desk goes onto a ship, comes to the United States, finds its way to Bob's Furniture, Bob's Discount Furniture. Bob sells it for $1,000. You see what's going on here? That's real life. Those are real costs. Okay? The markup on furniture is about 900, between 700 and 900% markup. Yeah. For clothing, it's about 700% roughly. For example, Macy's sells a red shirt for, say, $50. Okay, that's the retail price. They purchased it through their distributor for probably about $10. The distributor bought it from the manufacturer in, we'll say, Indonesia. Well, by the way, they make great quality clothing, Indonesia. They purchased the red shirt from Indonesia factory for $5. So it cost $5 to make. Distributor bought it for $10. Macy's bought it from the distributor for $20, sold it to you for $50. Okay, those are real life numbers, right? That's pretty damn accurate. Okay, so when you go into Macy's and you're like, oh man, I don't know how they can afford to mark that put it on sale for 90% off. Trust me, they can afford it, and they're still making profit. So, just food for thought. But the reason why I bring that up is because when we're talking about trade, we're usually importing the goods and services from outside the U.S., and they're sold here in the U.S. Once in a while, we export goods and services to other countries. We might export grain, from the farms. We might export corn, grain, soy, other agricultural products. Yeah, we export those to other countries. Here's a great example of that. So the U.S. trades a lot with Japan. They're one of our larger trading partners. I mean, our largest trading partners are, of course, Mexico and Canada. But we also trade a lot with Japan. And so here we have an example of trade that we do with Japan. The United States produces a lot of grain, as I had mentioned, grain and soy and corn and all that jazz. We export that to Japan, and we import Japanese cars. Yeah, that very, very typical type of trade relationship we have with Japan. But here in this example, we can see that one car imported, 2 tons of food exported. Okay. We have one car and 1 ton on the Japanese side. So this is coming in and out of the country. Just give you an idea. Just idea of how trade works. So we look at comparative advantage of producing goods and services in one country over another. We look at the opportunity cost of producing in one country over another. And we look at who's really good, the specialty in producing certain items. So like the Japanese are amazing at producing cars, and the United States is really good at producing food, grains, soy, corn, etc. And so because of this, we have a trade relationship with Japan. See, that's what we're learning here. So the opportunity cost is what's given up. So in order for me to purchase the car from Japan, what did I give up? Was the cost of making that car here in the United States. That's the opportunity cost. For 1 ton of food is 1 car. Yeah. And then we look at who's specializing in what. That's the idea behind, a very general idea behind what trade is and how it works. And that, my friends, is the end of our discussion on interdependence and gains from trade. Are there any questions about this? We're doing okay? Okay, and I know this is boring stuff, so. Ellison, are we okay?
Definitely not boring.
Definitely not boring?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. I'm glad I didn't put all of you to sleep. Yeah, it's economics could be really interesting, and so my goal, yeah, it's a lot to take in. Yeah, D'Angelo, you nailed it. It's a lot to take in. I try to make this course as entertaining as I can by using current examples. I brought up the what's going to happen next month with the inflation rate, or the what do I call it? The interest rate. The Federal Reserve interest rate should be going down next month. The Federal Reserve is going to make a cut next month. That's what we've been told. The economy is doing well because of that news. We can see what will be the impact on trade. The impact on trade from that news from the Federal Reserve is that we'll probably see more trade. Why is that? Because the cost of borrowing will be less. And when the cost of borrowing is less, that means more is being spent. And that'll stabilize the economy. Right? That's the idea here. So I'll try my best to keep things as current as possible, give you real life examples, try to make it fun. Because I know it's a boring subject, so that boring to some anyway. So I'll try to make it as fun as I can. That's my promise to you throughout the next 14 weeks. So what do we have to do for this week? As a reminder, we have the hypothesis assignment, which I'm going to fix here shortly, as soon as we get off the call tonight. So we have hypothesis assignment. Please try to do your original post by Thursday night and respond to 2 of your classmates by Sunday. The instructions are here, how to do it. So if you click on there and you watch this video, it'll tell you what to do. And this will be, it kind of shows you what to do. Very simple. We have the 2 quizzes, Chapter 2 quiz, Chapter 3 quiz. Both of these need to be done by Sunday night. So we have 3 action items for this week. Hypothesis assignment, original post by Thursday, 2 responses by Sunday, and the 2 quizzes, Chapter 2 quiz, Chapter 3 quiz. All 3 of these items are due on Sunday night. So, and also, if for whatever reason you're past due on week 1, because I know that some of you are brand new to the course, this is your first day here at UDC, all of that good stuff. I get it. I totally understand you, where you're coming from. So what I'd like you to do, if you missed that work from week 1, is go back to week 1 and complete your week 1 discussion board and your Chapter 1 quiz. So if you missed either of those two items, please, please, please get those done right away. Tonight, if you can, definitely by tomorrow. Let's get you back on track because I don't want you to fall behind in this course because there's a lot of work that's got to be done each week. Yeah. Any comments, questions, concerns about the course so far, about anything at all? Are we good?
We're good.
Okay, I like that. Okay. Great. Okay, well, thank you all so very much for your time today. I sincerely appreciate all of you being here and taking the time to hang out with me and learn a little bit about this stuff. If you ever need any help at all, please feel free to email me, call me, set up office hours, whatever you need. I'm here for you, okay? So let's knock out those three things. Let's have an awesome week. And thanks again. Appreciate all of you. Have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you to the Professor B and to everybody in the classroom.
Awesome. Thanks, Len. Appreciate it. Thank you. Good night, everyone. Take care.
I have a question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, please.
My question is, do we have online, do we come on Wednesday?
No, we only meet on Mondays for lecture.
Okay.
The Wednesday class time is for you to complete the work for the week.
Okay.
Yep. Good
I
question.
was just unsure because
Hey,
I
no
know
worries.
you said it when the first week, but I was just making sure.
It's all good. I appreciate you double checking.
Alrighty, thank you. Have a
Thank
good
you.
one.
You too. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.